Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. This the news beat presented to you by Ladies Like. Follow the beat from the studio to the street. Info with the flow keeps you sharp and in the know. Sit back, relax, enjoy the news. Follow. It was the end of the genocide in 1994. Kagame became Rwanda's president after the war. He has been the president for 23 years and re-elected by referendum for 7 more years. But his regime is being criticized by human rights groups for human rights abuse, like arbitrary arrests, disappearances and murder. But people can't protest since criticism is often an offense. But someone is rising to Rwanda's defense. Diane Shima Rwigara has announced her intention to run in Rwanda's upcoming presidential election. Rwigara is 35, a businesswoman and a trained accountant. She believes she has what it takes to be a contestant, the first female candidate running as an independent. But her past is marked by a controversial incident. Her father's death was reported as a car accident, but his family calls it a political motivated murder, which sets her tense scene in the fight for political power. Rwigara thinks she can do better. She thinks she has potential, but does she have the credentials, the criteria it takes to be presidential? She believes so. When elected, she vows to protect the constitution, be open to opinions for free political interaction, establish economic equality, include both rich and poor, defend the interests of other people, and so much more. But trouble came for Rwigara as she took the stage. Candid news were released for the female candidate. Will Rwigara stick on her script and go the distance? Will she survive the scandal and show her resilience? Who knows if she will deliver her promises? The fact remains there will be consequences if Rwanda follows the trend of the continent and doesn't manage to elect a new president. It's up to Rwanda to choose Kagame or Rwigara. Who has the credentials, the criteria it takes to be presidential?
A nationwide mutiny that lasted for 4 days and paralyzed the towns and cities of Ivory Coast finally reached a peaceful conclusion when the mutineers ended the revolt. The aggrieved soldiers agreed to deal with the Ivorian government after taking their weapons into the streets in protest of delayed bonus payments. The payments were a reminder of a sum promised by the government of President Alassane Ouattara during the talks to end the earlier mutiny in January this year. For bonuses linked to the soldiers' support for President Ouattara's rise to power as the rebel faction fought in the bloody conflict against Laurent Gbagbo's regime that ended in the election of President Alassane Ouattara in 2010. However, in the recent years, the issue of bonus payment has been contentious and created friction between President Ouattara and the former rebel soldiers, especially after the Ivorian government revealed its plans to modernize its military force, which would involve retiring thousands of soldiers, particularly the ex-rebels. The rebel faction accounts for an estimated 8,000 of Ivory Coast's army of 24,000 soldiers, and after the agreement, arrangements were made for immediate payment of all mutineers. The mutiny had raised fears of a resurgence of violence since the country's decade-long civil war, especially after the United Nations had recently proclaimed a new era of peace, stability, and rule of law, and officially ended its peacekeeping mission in the land of Cocoa. I'm Moki Forever, reporting for Newsbeat.
Do you know whose situation is a bit tight? Uganda's defender of human rights, Opio Nicholas, is one of them. As a lawyer, he has been a voice of many voiceless and defended, making free choices. He has questioned the system, including the Electoral Law and the Anti-Homosexuality Act, which he got annulled in fact. As you can see, this human rights activist rules in prominent courts and is aggressive on support for his chapter for Uganda. That is his organization. Opio also strives for freedom of speech and of the press and political participation since he sees Uganda as a democratic nation. Opio's childhood was a tough to go through. Growing up in a war-torn Gulu, he had to flee for the LRA and saw how his sister was taken away. But in his pain, he grew an urge to defend others and stand for his Ugandan sisters and brothers. Opio has been rewarded a prestigious trophy, the impressive German Africa Prize, given to defenders of peace, democracy, and human rights. Opio declares that he wants more for the continent's future, so there might be better 30 years ahead than the ones we can see in the rear-view mirror.
Tanya Muzinda is just 12 years old. She may be a young girl, but she's bold. She made history as the first Zimbabwean female motocross champion. At the young age of 5, she had already learned to ride. She practiced hard at a park in Harare, destined to make history in Zimbabwe. In her first motocross competition, she came in second, but still full of ambition. Today, Tanya is the most decorated female in the sport. She couldn't have succeeded without the support of her family. Her father even sold his motorcycle to buy her a bike so that she would be able to compete. She was keen. She became a champion in 2015, received Zimbabwe's National Sports Awards and Zimbabwe's International Women's Awards. She had earned it. She had worked hard. At 9, she was named an EU ambassador and given a bike to continue as a top competitor. Tanya has found success in the sport of motocross even though it's a male-dominated sport. She's doing her best to be everything she can be, to become a world champion and make history. I'm MC Loy,
another hit. Still ladies like reporting live and direct with love and respect. Follow the beat, follow the beat, follow the beat, follow the beat.
Follow the beat.
Follow the beat, follow the beat, follow the beat, follow the beat.
Follow the beat.